So I'm doing a book review from my Halloween reading challenge, and the book we're talking about today is The Ghosts of Edith Wharton by Edith Wharton. And I've actually finished 2 other books. I'm backed up on videos. I'm backed up on videos. I don't know if I'm gonna do a review of Dead Leaves, because I didn't like it. So, I mean, I don't really want to make a video saying a bunch of negative stuff, but I might throw something in another video. And then I finished Our Family Trouble, the story of the Bell Witch, which I might do a video on, or I might skip. I'm not sure. That was pretty good, but strange. And then I have one more book. I'm working on it now. It's the Susan Hill book, Small Hands and Dolly, which will definitely have a review, but it is probably, even though I'm sure I'm going to finish it by Halloween, the review probably won't put up till after Halloween, just because I have too many videos to upload, and it'd be crazy. I'd be uploading 2 or 3 videos a day for the next couple of days if I was going to do that. So I think you've had enough of me. Just 1 a day at the most is what I'm aiming for here. And then in November we're going to scale it back and go back to 1 video a week, hopefully. Alright, so anyways, this was a good book. Not a great book, but not a bad book. I enjoyed it. They're not really super scary stories, and I had read the first one, and I had read the last one before. So the first story in the book is the lady's maid's Belle, which I think might be fairly famous for her. I feel like I've read that in school as well as in some kind of compilation book. And then the last one, I know I read it because I was remembering things about it as I read it, but I couldn't remember how it ended. I don't remember where or when I read it, but it's called All Souls, and I think that might have been my favorite one out of all of them. And there's a little kind of a TV episode, dramatization of the Lady's Maid's Belle, which you can watch on YouTube. Someone has uploaded it. I'll put a link to that in the description, if you're looking for something to watch the next couple of days, since it's Halloween time. You want something a little more classic. A classic ghost story is what I'd call it. Yeah, so these are classic ghost stories. They're not gory, they're not super spooky, but they're good. Oh, you know what? Actually, I said All Souls was my favorite. I take that back. I think my favorite is called, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, Kerfol. It's Kerfol. Oh my god, that was like the cutest story. But I don't think it was meant to be cute. It's a ghost story about dogs. There's a whole bunch of ghost dogs in it. Oh, I loved it. It was really good. And it took place in France. Like, I think it was supposed to be the 1600s, so it was kind of different than the other ones in the book. It was either the 1600s or the 1700s in the story. And those ghost dogs. I loved that one. But yeah, something I didn't like about this particular collection of hers is, and I feel bad like saying this, but the illustrations, they're I'm not gonna say terrible. They don't match, the tone of the stories. They look like they're from like a Classics Illustrated or like a comic book or something. Here's the Kerfol one, which isn't too bad. It's cute. It's got the dog. Very cute. There was one picture, I think it was All Souls, which was pretty good. Each story there was one illustration, but I'm pretty much not impressed with it. That kind of looks like an Edward Gorey lady, so that might be why I like that one. If you don't know who Edward Gorey is, you definitely have to look him up if you like spooky ghost stories. He's pretty awesome. But he's an illustrator. Although he wrote, little like picture books. Not easy reading, but you could sail along through it. Or just read, you know, a story at a time whenever you're in the mood for something a little spooky. I like to read a nice ghost story before bed, so I have tons of ghost story collections. Okay, so there's one story, and it's called Miss Mary Pask. And it just had this one little phrase in it, which I really found very, very interesting. It says, "My weak mind wandered in and out among these visions and conjectures, and the longer I lived with them, the more convinced I became that something which had been Mary Pask had talked with me that night." I liked that. And she has, like, in italics, which had been Mary Pask. I just find that, like, an interesting thought to think about a ghost. Like, the ghost is no longer that person, obviously. But it's like, what remains of that person in the ghost? I've never really thought of a ghost like that, I guess. And I just wrote that down because I want to think some more about that. It's kind of, like, inspiring to me. If I ever wrote a ghost story, that would be something I would be thinking about, I think. Convinced I became that something which had been Mary Pask, which had been her, and isn't her anymore. So what is it? What is a ghost? I like it. And then I had this other note written down. I like to use just plain, like, scrap paper sometimes when I read books, so then I can make notes about what I'm reading, and it's just, like, written all over the paper. Page 281. Okay, so this I marked down because it's amazing. I love this little passage. It's spooky and beautiful. Okay, so this is from the last story in the book, called All Souls, which was probably one of my favorites. Okay, so. "She lays staring at the dark windows, watching for the first glimmer of dawn. At last she saw a pale filter of daylight through the shutters. One by one the objects between the bed and the window recovered first their outline, then their bulk, and seemed to be stealthily regrouping themselves, after goodness knows what secret displacements during the night. Who that has lived in an old house could possibly believe that the furniture in it stays still all night?" I just found that so interesting, and I live in an old house, and sometimes I'll wake up, you know, right before dawn, and I like to just lie there and watch the light come into the room, so I really enjoyed that, and it's pretty spooky too, to think about. Yeah, that was good. That was one of the better moments of her stories. But there was a few stories I didn't really care for the endings. It felt like they should have continued on a little more, like the endings were premature. But overall, like, I recommend the book. Or if you just get a chance, you could probably find any of these stories online. I would look up The Lady's Maid's Bell, Kerfol, and All Souls, and also Pomegranate Seed and The Looking Glass were pretty good. Oh yeah, and Mrs. Jones, actually, was a really good one. Mr. Jones, I'm sorry. And Mr. Jones, that story was really good too. So actually I liked quite a few of these. There's just a few that... Afterward, there's a story called Afterward, where you don't know you've seen the ghost until afterwards. That was good. Yeah, so, I mean, there's just a few in here that I didn't really care that much for. Yep, so you should check that out. And, so thank you for watching, and I'll either see you again really soon with the Bell Witch book, or I'll see you after Halloween sometime with my review of the Susan Hill book, which is the last of the spooky books. And then I'm sure I'm going to be doing reviews of just any books, and generally I read spooky books, so there'll be plenty more spooky books, but I think we've made it through the spooky book challenge. I feel very confident I'm going to finish that Susan Hill book by 11:59 p.m. on Halloween. So thank you for watching.